On our next episode is a very somber topic, especially in the month of October. It's cancer and the alternative treatments that you can look into in addition to whatever your doctor is doing. So there's way more that you can do for yourself from an advocacy standpoint, and we spend time talking with a real person who's been going through this for the last 4 years. We will educate you on what we learned about normal treatment and then what you can do from an alternative treatment standpoint. So there will be some education on what those treatments are, where you can find those treatments, and what you need to research for your own specific treatment plan. Welcome to Learn, Chat, Share, the podcast where knowledge meets conversation. Hosted by Daniel Wathen. Okay, we're rolling.
We are ready.
We're ready. Okay. Well, for all of you that are listening, we already started crying, so we had to do a restart.
That was my fault.
Yeah, it was a nice little story. So we're going to talk about. We're going to try and make this positive, and not too depressing and dark, but
Correct.
It is a hard topic.
Yes.
Related to cancer. I think every single listener has had someone in their life or has experienced cancer in some sort of way, and you can't go on any social media right now and not be in any sort of interaction with the topic. And Valerie has spent the greater part of 3 years, just lapsed 3 years, on her cancer journey. And we're going to talk about a little information related to your case so that they understand where you're coming from a knowledge standpoint.
Yes.
And we have there's been a lot of learning for you, I know, because we've talked about it. And There's been a lot of learning for your friend circle.
Yes.
And family. And I wanted to talk about this because it's not common knowledge.
Correct.
And it's not what's shared in the media. It's not. There are some podcast informationals about this, and I think they would be considered more fringe. But I wanted to sort of normalize this a bit more and just talk about your experience and what we've all learned through this. But I'm not going to talk for you. So if you can tell everyone what your diagnosis was.
Yes.
What process you have gone through.
Okay.
And I'll interject because there's some lower periods where you weren't really there.
Yes. And just so that you all know, Daniel has been with me through every step of this process. Like really, coming down to my house and taking care of stuff when I literally couldn't get out of bed. So that being said, I was diagnosed in June of 2021 with stage 4 colon cancer. I went into a surgery. They thought it was going to be ovarian cancer, and surprise, it was something else entirely. After having a very sizable tumor removed, then doing chemotherapy, I was in remission for a little bit and had to have some other surgeries done because we live in a town where the reputation for top tier medical care is not one of the best. It's not one of the things Las Vegas is known for. So unfortunately, because of some little trip ups, I had to have a couple of more surgeries and was not able to do treatment. So the cancer came back. So now I have what is called metastatic disease. So I have a couple of spots within my abdomen. And the good news is they don't seem to really be marching along and doing too much very quickly. I feel very fortunate about that. However, I haven't just done traditional standard care. And that's what we want to talk to you all about today is when you get a scary diagnosis, I think it's in our people typically, you just want to put all of your faith in your doctors. And you don't realize there's so many other treatments out there that are researched, that are effective, that are peer reviewed, but the big pharmaceutical companies are not interested in them because they can't patent them. So an oncologist is not going to recommend them for you. So we have to do our research. So that's what we're talking about. And I've done quite a lot of non-standard treatments. And luckily for me, things were growing and spreading up until last December. I was able to go to a place in Mexico called Immunity Therapy Center. And I went for 3 weeks. I had treatment 6 days a week for 3 weeks. It's a variety of different treatments, and it depends on what type of cancer you have. And a lot of the treatments are IV. They do also frequency therapy as well, but that got me stable. Mm-hmm. So I'm super grateful that I went down there and was able to do that, and to get a chance to just to have things not progressing.
Yeah. Let's go back in time a bit, because I think what we want to center around here is advocacy, self-advocacy.
Yes.
And I think what the learning, so Valerie went through the process of leaning on her doctors and getting opinions, but centered around sort of local talent and a bit more of the normal
traditional
treatments, etc. Mm-hmm. So just for all listeners, that was 2 years of this, including 3 major surgeries.
Yes.
And the ramifications of going through surgery when you have just gone off of radiation, which is
chemotherapy. I hadn't had radiation yet.
So it was how the body heals when it's in a specific state is also important before you sort of head down that road.
Correct.
So I think we're the suggestion that Valerie is making around some alternatives, et cetera. It's after a very long road of getting there.
Yes, because I got frustrated with my oncologist. I said, "Is there anything else we can do?" And she said, "No." And I thought, well, that's ridiculous. Yes, there is. And I do wish that I had been, and that's why hopefully anyone who is listening, if you know someone who has cancer, or if you have cancer, don't delay. Start doing research immediately. And I'm not saying not to do traditional care, but there are other things that you can also do to supplement and to help yourself. And a lot of times online, I'll read, comments on what people are saying, and they are off track. They do not know what they're talking about. So you do have to do some digging and do some research to help yourselves. And in anything that we do, advocating for ourselves is important, or having someone who can be a strong advocate for you if you're not feeling well enough to do it yourself. So through this process is very important.
Mm-hmm. And if you're not going through this journey and you're listening to this, or you have experienced someone who's gone through sort of the more or the less traditional route, advocating is also making sure that you're offloading that information to others. Like, correct. I have another friend who's sitting in UMC right now, awaiting throat surgery. He's going to lose his voice box.
Yes.
I gave him all of Valerie's information. I was like, look, you will want to do, this is my saying, so Valerie's heard this before. You do all the things.
Yes.
It's like, do all of the things. If you break a bone, or if you have a knee replacement or what have you, there's a multitude of therapies that you go through. You just don't take a pill and then everything goes back,
right?
And so there's a lot more to the story, and advocacy can both be with those that are surrounding you, if you do in fact have the cancer, or if you know someone, you can spread the word as it pertains to this. And quite honestly, you can go onto ChatGPT and have it do a bunch of research for you.
Right.
It has access to pretty much everything up to date. So if you're not getting there through sort of normal Google search or what have you, can it took me 35 seconds to pull information for this,
Yes.
just so we had backup. But
There's a lot.
There's a lot out there.
There's a lot of information. Yeah. So use the tools that we have available to us, all of us at our fingertips, and or most of us, and start looking into alternative therapies. Now, for me, I didn't want to not do traditional care because of being at stage 4. Stage 4 means it's incurable. So that's what they say. It's incurable. Okay. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm not trying to, put my fist in the air and say, try me, but that's what stage 4 means. It's incurable. If someone is at stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, they might very well be able to go through traditional care and that's it. They're good. For me, I have to do more. So I have been. And I think for the most part, I'm doing pretty okay. Considering, I will also tell a story about when I was first diagnosed. I was looking on social media to see if there were other people who had the same diagnosis as I did or had just been given. And I found a lady who lived in St. Louis, and we were exactly parallel. Exact same diagnosis. We are the same age. We had surgery the same week. She also had a large tumor that had to be removed. We started chemotherapy in August of 2021. Same, everything the same. And so she and I kept in contact. And she was under a team of doctors, a university team where she lives. And I remember feeling a few times like, gosh, I wish that I had that available where I live. She never did anything outside of what her team told her to do. I cannot say for 100% certain if this has made a difference or not. I do feel that it has, but she never did anything different, and she passed away about a month ago. When I was in Mexico doing my treatments, I was messaging with her, and I was telling her I told her where I was and what they're doing, and she was very supportive, and like, that is really great. But she did not. She only did the traditional care. And I really feel that if you get to a stage 3 or 4, extra things outside of traditional care are going to be beneficial.
And you may have to travel to do that. I mean, traveling to Tijuana for us is not necessarily international travel, but for a lot of people, it would be.
Yes.
And I think through your research, you found that there's a lot of these treatments available, more so on the East Coast.
Yes.
So for those that are on the East Coast, it may be a bit easier to get there. But you, in the zone of having to do extra or do more or do those additional treatments, you're going to have to travel for
Correct.
them.
And there were people at that clinic. There was a gentleman from Australia, and keep in mind, in Australia, they have universal health care, but he was not, the traditional treatment under universal health care wasn't getting him where he wanted to go. So he and his wife traveled all the way up here. There was a guy from Ireland as well. Keep in mind, they also have universal health care. So it's not a matter of, I don't have insurance and I needed to get to this place. No, they have insurance. They just can't get that kind of care where they live and opted to travel to get it. The other part is we can do this here in the United States. There's a really great clinic in Irvine, California. I did see a doctor down there, but insurance does not cover these treatments, and it is crazy expensive. There's a couple of clinics also in Phoenix, Scottsdale area where they do these same type of treatments, but the same goes. Insurance does not cover it. So that's why I went to Mexico. While it was still expensive, it was a fraction of what I would have paid if I had gone to California or to Arizona.
Yeah, and for listeners, it's like remove a zero. It was
Crazy expensive.
crazy expensive here locally, locally in the United States.
Yes.
Which is sad because it doesn't have to be that way, and they're, for folks that can afford it, they're making a mint off of it.
Yes.
And they're all getting these tools from the same manufacturers. So
Right.
it's not, the markup can't, I don't know. I have my opinion about these 500 to 1,000% markups.
Oh, yes.
For life. Anywho, I think, let's back up a little moment on the self-advocacy, because your diagnosis was misdiagnosis, but it's common in women.
Yes.
And I think a special footnote should be made about your specific, the road they went down.
Yes.
Originally, and then had to pivot and divert, and kind of what you lost as a result of that.
Yes.
Because I think I think a big warning to women that, hey, this is more common, this misdiagnosis, and
It's true. So ovarian cancer and colon cancer in women, the symptoms often mimic one another. So that's why they thought I had ovarian cancer to begin with. Now, interestingly, just this morning, I was thinking this over because I knew we were going to record today. And I thought, but the one thing they did not do that could have been done before the surgery so that they knew exactly what they were dealing with was to do a PET scan. So a PET scan is you drink some radioactive stuff. They inject you with this sort of a glucose solution that's also radioactive. And cancer loves, loves, loves sugar. So then when they put you in the machine to be able to visualize what's going on within your body, the tumors will light up because they're taking in all of that sugar. They did not do that. I had a CAT scan and they could see a mass. I'd had an MRI and they could see a mass, but they couldn't tell exactly where it was. They assumed it was ovarian. So if they had done a PET scan, it would have been a little more exact.
Yeah, and I would think that this should be a bit more normal, that they should have done X, right? So for any woman who is listening to this and you get a diagnosis of ovarian or colon, have them double check and do the PET scan.
Yes.
Valerie lost her uterus as a result.
I had a full hysterectomy.
Full hysterectomy before they started on the colon, which is where the cancer actually was.
Correct. And then I woke up with, going into the surgery, I had zero idea that I would ever in a million years wake up with an ileostomy bag because they had to divert my large intestine from my small intestine. Now, there's been a lot of questions. I've seen other doctors since this whole situation, and they asked, why weren't things just reconnected? And I say, I don't know. I am not the expert. So my hope is, first of all, I was not expecting to wake up with this. And second, my hope is to be able to get to a point where I can have that reversed. So that'll be a great day when that happens. Yes. Okay, so let's talk about, we talked about just a little bit of my story, but you want to talk about the conventional treatments?
I mean, how many of these have you had?
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Surgery.
Surgery, yes.
Yes. Chemotherapy.
Yes.
Any thoughts on chemotherapy and body's reaction to the variety of different versions of chemo that you've had?
Oh, I actually have had several different versions of chemotherapy. The first round of chemotherapy I had the strangest side effect. And I dragged Daniel right through all of it with me. I would get the most bizarre cravings for food and very specific foods. And I would just have to have it. There were a couple of things I couldn't get my hands on. But Daniel said, I think by the time you're done with chemotherapy, I'll have been around the world with you with all this food. But so that was kind of a strange thing. I don't think most everybody gets that.
No. You were hungry.
I was hungry and for very specific things.
You name two of them. Like, name the one that we never ended up getting, the Portuguese.
That sandwich, the Francesina, it's a Portuguese sandwich. You can't get them here.
Never got it.
No, there's plenty of Brazilian restaurants where we live, but not Portuguese. And Brazilian restaurants don't have these sandwiches. But I did get it at the airport on our way back home from our trip summer before last.
But it would be like, we need to go have seafood, or we need, like, if she didn't have shrimp, there's going to be a problem. A lot of meat, a lot of different types of meat.
And I was very specifically, one week I had to have the banh mi, the Vietnamese sandwich with the pate. I had to have it.
Yeah. Her first chemotherapy session, it was barbecue.
Yes.
We got her a barbecue dinner, and
Yes.
she gobbled this barbecue down. But I think part of why not that you bounced back quickly, but you ate.
Yes.
So that's not true for other people, that they just get nauseous and can't.
Right.
But you certainly were.
Well, and the oncologist will tell patients, just eat whatever you can. And I think that is so stupid. Your body is going through literally a battle, and you need to provide it with the best nutrition you can. And that does not include junk food, milkshakes, high sugar, anything high sugar. Cancer loves sugar. So we have to be careful about those things. But the oncologist will just say, just eat anything you can.
Well, and you're trapped because your brain is starving.
Yes.
And it's going to literally shove the the quickest jolt back into the body.
Yes.
And if your throat is sore or your mouth is sore, you're going to want to go cold.
Yep.
If you're not having the cold sensitivity.
Yep.
There's all the things that come with chemotherapy.
There's a
radiation,
variety,
so.
and it depends on what your diagnosis is and what chemotherapy drugs they're using. Sorry, it just was moving the chair. But so people get all kinds of different side effects. I did get neuropathy, pins and needles feeling in my mouth and my throat and in my fingers and toes with one of the chemotherapies, not the first one. There's things that definitely go on.
But why don't they tell people not to have any sugar?
This is the craziest thing, and I really recommend anyone to look up Dr. Thomas Seyfried. I might be saying that incorrectly. He has been researching this very topic for well over 20 years. And cancer, in order for it to grow and proliferate, it will the reason it loves sugar is because it uses it for a fermentation process, and that's what helps it to grow and proliferate. So if you're not putting that in your body, then it has a difficult time continuing to do its thing. Correct. And it also, there's another part to what his research has shown. So I highly recommend, please look up Dr. Thomas Seyfried. He is an expert, and he's so frustrated because nobody wants to listen to him, and yet he has got 20 years plus of research showing and proving, hey, if we just do these things, cancer patients will be so much better off.
Well, and simply put, the PET scan is built around it.
Correct.
Right. So,
That's
I mean,
how
you
they
just
find
see
it.
it in play. That's why, to me, so for those listening, sometimes you have people in your life that are like, will shake their head and that just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Some of these things that you've gone through just don't make sense.
Right.
And so don't, if you're craving M&Ms, find something else.
Find something else.
Find something else and don't go the milkshake route and
Don't just try.
just
Dr. Seifried, however you say his name. I'm so sorry. I'm not saying your name correctly. He really recommends a metabolic keto approach to eating. He doesn't care if people go more plant-based from that or if they go more meat-based. But the metabolic part of it is you've got to eat a lot of fat. You've got to eat good fats. And that also helps you not crave sugar. So,
and it's best for the brain.
And it's best for it's so good. There's tons of research on that specific diet, and it's good for pretty much anything that people are struggling with. Keto will help people. So
grab the avocado.
Yes. So the research is there, and look him up. He's really amazing guy. So that was one of the things I was being very careful about was not that I didn't have a treat every once in a while. I still do every once in a while, but it's certainly not like before.
Yeah, a fundamental like dessert every day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Nope.
Okay. So of all we have a list here for everyone. This was pulled through our friend ChatGPT. So the approved FDA treatments are the surgery, chemotherapy, targeted therapies, radiation, that is a component of, and we'll talk about a non-approved radiation. I don't know. Is proton
therapy is approved. We'll get into why most doctors don't recommend it though.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll touch on radiation in a second.
Yep.
Did you have
I did not. So
you had a liver.
Right. So sometimes they will do something called, they call it maybe different things in different areas. Here in Las Vegas, they call it cyber knife. So that's like a radio embolization. And when I asked my oncologist a little less than a year ago, if there was anything more that we could do, she said no, because the lesions had gotten too big. And I'm thinking, well, whose fault is that? Should we not have maybe scheduled me for one of these treatments before the lesions got to the size that they became? So yes, there are things that that can be done with the embolization. They're actually doing heat and cold embolization too, non-traditional, which is an interesting treatment.
And the immunotherapy?
Yes, so they'll give you IV, different IV liquids that are supposed to help boost your immune system.
Yeah, the high vitamin C and
your oncologist will not do that. There's other things that I've not had any of that immune boosting IVs, but I think for some cancers they do, and I'm not exactly sure all the ones that the oncologist would approve. But yes, some people do get the immune therapy.
Yeah, for everyone listening, there are some like thoughts around super high dosing of vitamin C.
IV,
The IV, like we're talking 25,000.
Yes,
plus,
or 50,000.
50,000 plus, like it's in the body.
Yes.
And I only know that because I have a friend that's an IV technician.
Yes.
And so that therapy actually gets called pretty often, depending on who your doctor is.
Yes.
Valerie did not experience that, doctor.
No, and I went on to just do it on my own. Yeah.
Now, in the I love ChatGPT. Experimental and alternative treatments.
Yes.
It's their topic. So sort of off the U.S. FDA, hypothermia therapy.
Yes. So what they will do is they'll put you into like a sauna and induce a fever, because that has the effect of killing cancer cells. So
how do they? Sauna induced
yes.
fever.
So you'll be in like a sauna, and they'll induce a fever.
Dangerous?
Well, they do this at the clinic where I went in Mexico. However, I could not do it because I have this ileostomy bag that has adhesive, and the heat would make the adhesive
Pop.
Yeah. So I couldn't personally do that. However, most everybody else was doing that part of treatment. Yes.
And is there the opposite? Like cold
You can also do
therapy?
cold therapy. Yes.
Okay. Photodynamic therapy.
I'm not really sure what photodynamic therapy means. However, it might be the red light therapy, and you can find places. If you live in a metropolitan area, you can find places. Usually they're like rejuvenation centers, health and wellness, sometimes spas. It doesn't matter. You can go in and do a non-heated full body red light therapy. And red light therapy has been shown to be very effective for cancer. So also try that. Daniel, when I first was diagnosed and came home, he gave me his small red light panel, and I use it every morning. So every morning when I get up, I get the red light panel out, and I have it directed toward my abdomen for at least 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah, I did a quick search. It's the red light therapy.
Yes.
Or any light therapy.
Yep.
I miss my light therapy.
I know, but you can't have it back yet.
I gave it to her.
I do use it every day, I promise.
Temporarily, 3 years later.
It's been 3 years later. True.
All for a good cause. Nutritional and dietary approaches. So I think we could do a whole entire segment on anti-sugar, low carb,
Yeah.
smart carb.
Get rid of the junk. And that's really hard for a lot of people.
But I think everyone should know that it's not evicted completely.
Correct.
Right. It's reduced to the point where it doesn't have a long-term adverse impact to your body chemistry.
Yes.
So if you go to France, have some bread.
Yes. Enjoy yourself.
I mean, if you're going to have bread on planet Earth, you might as well just do it in France anyway.
That is a fact. That is a fact. Yeah. So you don't have to.
We promote France on this
We will.
podcast a lot.
We should probably just do a whole podcast on that.
Yeah. Our Southern
But
France
right,
experience.
you should still enjoy yourself, and I do still have treats every once in a while. I just don't do it as often as I used to, and I for sure do not drink any of the protein drinks that the oncologist will recommend, like the Ensure. There's a variety of different liquid protein drinks. I don't drink them because look at the ingredient list. I don't want any of that in my body. No, thank you. None of that stuff. And I actually don't know if your body can absorb the protein that it might say it's 20 grams of protein. Your body may only absorb 5 of it. But I do know that with animal protein, our bodies can absorb almost all of it. So I go with that. Eggs are amazing. I eat a lot of eggs. So, and I do know that sometimes people don't feel like eating very much, but trying to get the right nutrition in is super important.
Make yourself.
Yes.
You will not be able to heal without the nutrients.
Yes.
But just to remind everyone, low sugar, smart carbs, a lot of meat.
Yes.
Create a ketogenic environment.
Yes.
For cancer to not live in.
Right. And I want to add to that, just on the nutritional approaches, you need to be careful of your water. We are all exposed to so much plastic all of the time. And I've really made it a goal since being diagnosed to ditch as much plastic as I possibly can. Daniel knows I go around with my little drink cup all the time. It's stainless steel, but most of them are also outfitted with a plastic straw on the inside and a plastic straw on the outside. I bought a stainless steel straw, so I'm not getting exposure to plastic. I think that's important for anyone, even if you don't have a serious diagnosis, There's just too much plastic.
For all of you, she just eyeballed my plastic water bottle, and the only reason why I have it is because I can hold it, because my Yeti doesn't have a handle. But is that a Stanley? I think
This is not. This is a Hydro Flask.
A Hydro Flask. So I was like, so it's not that it doesn't have plastic; it's just the plastic on it is not going into her body.
Yeah, it's not touching.
It's not touching.
I don't have any exposure to the plastic. Yes. Yes, correct. So I think that's really important. We really have to be careful. If people start looking into water, that's a very interesting topic, and what you should and shouldn't be drinking, and how water can really be one of the components of getting well.
Yes. That's a whole... I think we should just do a whole on like glass bottles over aluminum over
and that's
plastic, and the heat index and what happens to the actual water inside of it during transport. And so there's a lot there. So I'm getting agitated just thinking about it. Okay, so alternative methods. So I think let's talk about proton therapy, because it is approved.
Yes.
It's a specific kind of radiation.
Yes.
Which I never knew about it. So I think we should talk about that. And then let's go through all the things you did when you were in Mexico.
Okay.
Because those are important as well as far as alternative. And I don't think you did a whole array of potentials, right? But they obviously had built a specialized plan for you.
Correct.
Which is also part of it. So let's give some highlights there.
Okay. Sounds good. So proton therapy is something that I just recently did. I accidentally found out about it. I had been down to University of Southern California. I have a team of doctors there who I see. And as you know, our phones are listening to us all of the time. So I was down there, saw my doctors, and I went to get on my phone to search something on Google, and this ad comes up that says proton therapy.
Really?
Yes. And I thought, what is this? What is this proton therapy? So I start researching proton therapy. I find this place in San Diego called California Protons. Then I spoke to the oncologist at USC, and she said, absolutely, find out if you're a candidate. And so I started making my phone calls to California Protons to see if I was a candidate, getting all my records down to them, getting my scans down to them so they could take a look at everything. And as it turned out, I was a candidate. So I was able to go do proton therapy. Now at USC, they wanted to do a really big surgery where they would resect my liver and remove the tumor that's in the lower left part of my pelvis. And it was going to be a big abdominal surgery, a big recovery, a big thing. So when I spoke to the oncologist at USC, she said, no, let's hold off on this surgery. Let's see about protons first. And I thought, that's so nice because, usually the oncologist, if it's not something that they directly benefit from, they don't recommend it for you.
So what was her name?
Dr. Algaze.
Okay, so we're just going to promote Dr. Algaze.
Yes, at USC.
At USC from having the wherewithal and mindfulness to say pause.
Yeah. Pause on another big surgery.
Okay to pause, right?
Yeah, it's okay to pause.
Okay, so you know me and my thoughts around the Matrix and all this kind of stuff. So how random is that you found that and had this, and mind you, we're talking about this because it did work. It is working.
It's working.
Painfully so, but it's still working.
Yes.
Meaning the areas are shrinking.
Yes.
But you would never have known about it without
Google listening to me.
An AI recommendation.
Yes.
In a feed.
Yes.
Was it on Facebook or Instagram?
It was. I just had opened Google to search something. I was down there overnight on my own.
That is so. Listeners, I did not know this part of the story. I just thought, because she's been on such a research tirade that I'm like, oh, she just found this, or
No,
it was I thought it was that or a recommendation from USC.
No, it was completely by accident. So,
oh wow,
the good news is I was a candidate and I got all my records sent down there and I was able to go.
And insurance covered, right?
Yes, insurance covers part of it. So my oncologist here where we live, I told her, I'm going to do this proton therapy. I'm looking in to see if I'm a candidate. And she said, well, I don't really know about these new treatments and how effective that they could be. And come to find out, proton therapy has been around for at least 20 years. And although I am not covered by Medicare, Medicare does cover proton therapy. What that means is if Medicare covers something, all the other insurance companies fall into line because Medicare doesn't cover fly-by-night treatments. Mm-hmm. So I told her this and she just said, well, okay, you could try it. She didn't have another suggestion for me. So I thought, yes, I'm going to go do this proton therapy. I went and they did 10 treatments on my liver and they did 10 treatments on the lesion that's in my pelvis. The treatment, you don't feel anything while it's happening. It is a whole experience of feeling like you're in something from Star Wars, Star Trek.
Complete Star Trek.
It's really, really interesting. Mm-hmm. But you don't feel anything, which is great. However, after finishing treatment on my abdomen, once I got back home, I felt like I'd had another abdominal surgery. I was in so much pain. I called the facility to find out or to let them know what was happening. And they said, not unusual. We're sorry, of course, you're experiencing this. We can prescribe pain medication for you. But the instance with me was that this particular tumor, where it's located in my lower left part of my pelvis, it's pretty big and it's close to the skin. And because of the size of it, they decided to really go for it with the intensity of the protons. So I had a week of really not being able to move around, like just laying perfectly still.
Yeah. What you said was the therapy really pissed it off.
Yeah, pissed
and
off.
And it was trying to fight back.
Yeah, that tumor got really pissed off.
It got really mad, angry.
Yes.
So I think I would go into it this way, and it is a naive thought, so I'm just going to say it out loud, that you always think that you're going to have some treatment and start feeling better immediately.
Correct.
But the body still has to heal.
Correct.
And that healing process is angry and inflammatory and painful, and like you couldn't even walk.
I couldn't. It was very difficult for me to get out of bed. It was, and I could not straighten up all the way to walk upright. Or I would lay on the couch and I felt like a bug stuck on my back because it was very difficult to maneuver, to get up, to do anything without some serious pain. But that's gone away now. And of course, I'm very, very glad about that. And it definitely feels like the tumor in my pelvis, it feels like it's getting smaller.
That's good.
So I get scans in October. We'll know more then. And I cannot say enough good things about California protons. If you're on the West Coast and you're diagnosed with cancer and they recommend radiation, look into California protons. And I'm saying this also because my cousin, who I was lucky enough to stay at his home while I was doing these treatments in San Diego, he was just completing radiation for cancer that he had in his throat. And I thought, why didn't his doctors, who are in this same county, recommend proton treatment? They recommended regular radiation, and he got the worst burns on his neck, and the whole inside of his mouth was just like one big open sore. Now, it's not that a little bit of that wouldn't happen with that type of cancer with proton treatment, but it would not have been as severe. But then I think about how things work medically in this country, and his doctor benefited from him going to the radiation facility at the hospital where he's affiliated. Mm-hmm. That's why they didn't recommend that he do proton therapy, even though it's right there.
Back to the advocacy.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think folks also, before they have a treatment, they should research it and read all the comments, the bad ones, right?
Yes.
Whether or not their body reacts in that manner, it is potential.
Yes.
And if there's alternatives, they need to explore those for sure.
And the good news is, so traditional radiation it doesn't matter where on the body the radiation is being focused, it burns your skin. Mm-hmm. And the radiation goes all the way through your body. Whereas with proton therapy, they do a 3D model of your body, so they can see exactly where the lesions are, and then they can it's very precise. And then it does something, if for you science people out there, this might make sense to you. I only know this terminology because my son got very interested in this process and wanted to know exactly how this proton therapy was working. So it does something where, because they know exactly the size of the lesion or the tumor where they're focusing these proton beams, they call them pencil beams, it hits something called the Bragg peak, and then it falls short. So it stops where the tumor ends and doesn't continue all the way through your body. So it's not affecting healthy tissue, which is
good.
Traditional radiation, that's not what happens. It affects healthy tissue around
shock and awe of a specific area versus
and then people can wind up with
guerrilla warfare.
Right. And people can wind up with other long-term issues because of that. So yeah, definitely recommend proton therapy.
And all the radiation poisoning side of it, right? The burns and the...
Yes, it's not great. It's not great for people. But again, California and every single person at that facility were absolutely top-notch. There was not one single individual who I dealt with who wasn't. They were all positive and upbeat and helpful and funny. And it was actually, I really would look forward to going in each day for treatment because there was always something funny going on with the technicians who would put me on the table and get me in the machine. It was just really, really pleasant. And the doctors, very positive too. And that just has not been my experience here in Las Vegas. And it makes a difference if you are surrounded by people who are positive.
Yeah. Your whole quality of the experience in your life. And when you leave and you're left with the really dark road, right?
Yes.
You need some brightness to help in the healing. And we want to wrap up soon. But let's get into some of just name them, what the different therapies were.
So therapies down in Mexico, a lot of it was IV therapy. So I did do high dose vitamin C down there. Mm-hmm. They have if you look on their website, it lists all of the different therapies that they do. I had most all of them. And so high dose vitamin C. There was also another one. It is a compound from apricot seeds. I don't remember the exact name of it, but it's B17 is and you can't get like vitamin B17 just anywhere. So that also, all of these things have been shown to cause cancer cell death. So I was doing IVs pretty much all day. They also had me on, you will lay down on electromagnetic frequency beds because frequency has a lot to for me that caused heat to go into the tumors. And while I was down there, it was only 3 weeks. They did a couple of scans and they found that the tumor in my abdomen had started to liquefy on the inside. So it was dying from the inside out. I do wish that I could have stayed longer because I think they would have gotten completely rid of it. But they did do and they aspirated it. So that means that they poked a needle in and they withdrew almost 3 ounces of fluid from this thing. Yes. There was a young woman down there. She was from the East Coast, actually, and she had been down there for 6 months. When she got there, she had something close to 30 tumors throughout her body. And she left about a week into me being down there, 0 tumors. All good. So it is very effective. And she's young lady, maybe 21 or 22, but her parents made it happen. Like whatever we need to do to get her back healthy is what we're going to do. And so, I mean, everyone erupted in just sheer joy the day that she left. So excited that she was healthy.
They probably have thousands of those types of stories, especially for long, like anywhere else with 30 tumors, she would have died within 2 or 3 weeks.
Correct.
So, I mean, the effort is not inexpensive.
It's not inexpensive. Being down there for 6 months would be pretty expensive, but still a fraction of what that same care would be in the U.S.
Yes. And some of, I mean, there are some things on that list that you can do anywhere, which is some of those IVs, I'm sure, the high vitamin C IV. I'm sure there's been, NAB therapies.
Yes.
I've never heard of B17, but it might be rare or whatever.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. So let's wrap with, we're going to probably, for all of you, we're going to do probably another shorter segment on the future.
Yes.
So sort of, it'll touch on environmental. I think Valerie talked about plastic, but there's quite a few environmental things that all people, whether you have cancer or not, should consider. And it's not to create fear. It's just
awareness.
To understand, hey, if you are drinking out of heated plastic water bottles for 15 years of your life, there may be some problem that
could
arises from that when you're 60 or 65.
It's so true. And what I want to say, why also that's important, and we will talk about that on another podcast, is so many people believe that cancer is genetic. Only about 5% of cancers that are diagnosed are genetic. My cancer, they did the testing, was not genetic. No one on either side of my family has had cancer. So I really, before going into all of this, I didn't think I could possibly have cancer. No one in my family had cancer. But come to find out, the truth is only 5% are something that you can inherit. So the rest is environmental. What are we exposing ourselves to? So that's why this component is important.
And technology and cell phones and frequencies and, I mean, just the radiation coming from the sun, like, how it may be different, So again, not a scare.
No, we just want to give information. And for me, when we get into it, I just would do a little bit at a time. I couldn't replace all of my cookware all at once. So I'll just do a little bit at a time. I did get rid of all my plastic containers. But just a little bit at a time. I would buy glass. So just a little bit at a time. You don't have to do everything all at once.
Yeah. And we'll say some of this is just good for the environment.
Period.
Yes,
that is true.
Having just been in Hawaii and on the beach, and it was all broken plastic.
And
on the beach. So side
note on that, we will say, when we were in France, No plastic. Remember that?
No, very
Very little.
very little. I guess cellophane was the closest to plastic that there was, right?
And we maybe saw that once.
And that's brittle, right?
Right.
And was probably made out of something that biodegrades.
They just don't have.
don't.
And if you're,
Well, and my health went way.
yeah, you were feeling good.
Improved.
You were feeling good
Could
while
have
we
been
were
the
there.
French
Yep.
wine. It's always the French wine.
Yes.
So I think. How did we want to wrap? I forgot. Oh. Never give up.
Always, my motto through this has been to leave no stone unturned. So I'm constantly. I just found out a new compound yesterday. I just found out about it that can be ordered and that also will cause cell death. So I'm always searching for what's out there that's available to me. Can I order it myself? Can I take it myself? What is around town that I can go do on my own? And it's very important also look into hyperbaric oxygen. And a lot of these new like rejuvenation spas, med spa places, they have hyperbaric chambers.
Yes.
And so you could just go into them. It's one of the things also that the Dr. Thomas Seyfried recommends. He said, listen, all you need to do is control your sugar, control your glutamine, yes, and get into hyperbaric oxygen, because cancer likes to put your body into a low oxygen environment. So if you're super oxygenating, you're also
Got it.
fighting.
And I think the never give up part of this is you have stage 4,
Yes.
incurable. So
That's what they say.
The point for you will be to go into permanent remission.
Correct.
And that does not mean to stop any protocol.
No.
For the remainder of your life.
Correct.
And I think there's some misconceptions with some patients that, they cured it and then they just stopped doing the things.
Yes.
In my family, I've experienced that. My son's aunt did that. She went into remission and then
She didn't follow up with her
follow
scans.
up, and then ended up having lesions on her brain, and that just did not go down a good path, right?
Right. So I already know, for me personally, I will have to continue to do scans at whatever interval the doctors recommend, and I will continue to do my alternative treatments to keep everything knocked down, and to keep me in remission. And I feel like between going to the immunity therapy center in Mexico and getting stable, and then now with the proton therapy, I've got a really good crack at getting into remission and staying there.
And as a friend of yours, we will have a remission party.
Well, yes, we will. We do like to have a party.
Yes, we will have a party, and we will celebrate that. But yes, for everyone, never give up. Have a good, solid group around you. There are some, we can do a whole session on the depression that comes along with the,
Yes.
mapping through this. But you need those positive lights. You need friends in your life that just look through where you're at, and they may say a gruff thing or two to you to spike you. That's what I have to do for Valerie sometimes.
Okay, listen, don't let him fool you. He would cry right along with me.
I'll
some
cry.
days. But
I'll be like, get the fuck. We got to go do something.
we are doing, come on, get yourself up, get yourself dressed.
Yeah.
We're going to go do something.
And mind you, you have to have a strong friend that can take the brunt of your pain. Mental pain. You want someone you can yell at that's not going to get mad at you.
Yes. And there were definitely it is totally normal, I think.
Got to get it out.
You got to get it out. And I think it's totally normal for anyone with a serious diagnosis, whether it's cancer or anything else. You do get the why me's.
Yeah.
And so I would just sit in that for a little bit, but I wouldn't stay in it. And Daniel was really good about helping me to not stay in it.
Yeah. Well, and for a lot of people, they need therapy. You know,
Yes.
they need you. You didn't go. I don't know. Did you ever even see a therapist?
Well,
I don't think you did.
I looked. I did research to try to find a therapist who specializes. I really wanted someone who specializes in people with very serious diagnoses because that's important if they can get where you are.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find anyone here.
Huh.
Shocking. I couldn't find
So
someone.
strange.
I know. It is unfortunate. I'm sure I might be able to find someone in another state and I could do like a Zoom
Gotcha.
situation. But there is another component, which is important, is you have to do some emotional work.
Yeah, because it is painful. It's emotional, and okay.
Another topic.
Okay, another topic. That's a whole nother show. The emotion work.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think this was super informative. Hopefully for everyone, and we'll pause for now.
Yes. And we'll put things in show notes so that you can take a look at the websites of the different facilities.
Yes.
You can see the treatments and take a look at, if you
Call that doctor.
yes, definitely. And advocate for yourself. That's the most important thing.
Yes.
Advocate for yourself.
All right.
And that'll do it.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank
Valerie.
you. You are welcome, Daniel.
Time for lunch.
It is.